Hi, hello. Sorry. Apologies. My laptop decided to completely freeze on me, so I'm gonna have to do my phone. So I'm just gonna tell Mike um, live now on phone. Okay. All right. Yes, here we go. Yes, Mike, please update all the links possible wherever I have posted links to this show. Okay, and I think I only posted a link to uh, the the channel rather than the exact thing. So I have a little tripod which I'm just going to go and get. Just bear with me one sec and see if I can get this sorted without turning the phone off. Okay, there we go. That should be better. Apologies. The laptop just basically decided to completely freeze. It wouldn't even access Task Manager or anything like that. So that is really annoying because I was planning on using it, but it's not doing what I want it to do now. So let me explain kind of what happens. At least you can show us the box in your new PC. No, it's not even here yet, Mike. So, Mika, I can't even do that. So, sorry about that. So, here's how it works when I'm doing this show on my phone. Is that your messages, they pop up and they disappear. I don't get to see them unless I can get my laptop to work again, and then I can see your chat. But at the moment, this is how it's going to work. So basically, your comments are up for a second and then they disappear. So that's how that works. So that's why I'm not using the new computer, because it's not here yet. It's due to arrive on Thursday. So, and I don't know why we're getting awful glare from one of my lights. We shouldn't. Oh, I think we just dropped out for a second. So apologies for for all the hassle. Can everybody hear me? Please just tap yes if you can hear me. Yeah, buffering, I know. Nothing I can do about that, folks. Just, if you get buffering, just refresh. You know what to do. We've been streaming like this often enough. You should know what you need to do if we're buffering. So, okay, cool. Everybody can see and hear. So because things aren't quite, I'm going to try I'm going to try and get my laptop up and running, and I'm going to try and get into the show so that I can follow the chat. But who knows how well that'll work, because basically I had to press the power off button because the whole thing just totally froze up, and it's very annoying when that happens. So this might be a slightly shorter show. I'm just going to try and move that out of the way a bit. There we go. So this may well be a slightly shorter show than I was planning on, for the simple fact that I've had to completely change how I was going to do it. Maybe I should have started on my phone in the first place. That might have been a smarter idea. So, but I didn't think of that. I was hoping the laptop would work. We'll watch you do it like this, says Mika. Okay, well, just bear in mind that anything that you type up, I'm going to have to read really quickly in the chat. It's not going to be static. It comes up for about 2 seconds and then it disappears. And I don't get to see it again. So if I miss your question, I'm sorry about that. So is your computer not working at all? No, it is not. I mean, it is Windows 7. Windows 7 went end of life on Tuesday last week. I'm just going to log into this. Pretty much by the time we finish the show, oh dear God, come on. By the time we finish the show here, this may well be up and running, and I can follow the chat, but it is what it is. So, story on the new computer is that they had to, I ordered it last Saturday. Not yesterday, We keep on buffering. Sorry about that. We had to basically, or rather, they had to get a new cooler for the CPU because that cooler had gone end of life with the suppliers for this. It was a pre-built machine. And so basically, I got a pre-built machine because the idea was if I order it in time, it will arrive here on the Tuesday this week. And Windows 7 would have gone end of life, and I could just swap out one computer for another, job done, and my business would not miss a heartbeat. Didn't quite work out like that because they had to basically find another cooler that would fit this motherboard on this new computer, and that would do the job. Because it's basically it's what they call a silent computer. So there's no moving parts. So there's no mechanical hard drives. There's nothing like that involved in the machine at all. So it has an absolutely silent system. And for that, it doesn't need fans. So there's no cooling fans in the machine. It has it's a cooler I've never seen before. But those of you that know about computers, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. But I'm not that knowledgeable about computers. So that's the story with that. So they had to source a new cooler and then basically build the computer from scratch, which was annoying because it should have been a pre-built machine, should have been just sat ready on the shelf, and all they had to do was just box it up and send it out to me. That's the way it should have worked, and it should have been next day. So I should have ordered it on the Saturday and took delivery of it on the Monday, and that was the plan. But as I say, it didn't work out like that. So it's been a frustrating few days, to say the least. I powered the computer off on Tuesday night, early hours Wednesday morning, and I've left it switched off because, as I say, it is a Windows 7 machine, and it's now much more vulnerable to all sorts of nonsense, security breaches, malware, that kind of stuff. And I can't afford that, so I can't afford to take any risks. So with my online presence and everything else. Michael says, hope you got a discount or free upgrade of RAM or something. Actually, what they did was they gave me notifications anyway. So it's a better cooler. And they gave me that at no extra charge. And delivery is free. Delivery should have been a few pounds, but they changed that, which is very kind of them. I wonder if I press this button here, whether I can actually see the chat. Let's see. Let's go live chat. Okay, I think I might be able to see the chat on my phone now just by pressing that button there. I hadn't thought of that. So so that's the story. So the new one, as I say, they've had to build from scratch, and it should arrive on Thursday. So I will have Thursday and Friday to sort out the new computer, get it installed, and get all my applications and plugins and everything else sorted into the new machine. And then hopefully by next Sunday, we'll be good to go. So I think we've got a new person in the show. I missed the name because, as I say, it disappears. I don't know why. I think your name was Maria, and you're asking if I'm Irish. No, well, actually, I'm half Irish. I'm actually Scottish. But my mum is from the Highlands of Scotland, and my dad is from Southern Ireland. So yes, I have that mixture going on. But yeah, so welcome. I'm glad you're here. Is that Maria Otero? Maria Otero. Welcome. Good to see you. Welcome to my channel. I hope you find all of my shows, because I do this every Sunday, and it's usually way better than this, as everybody else will tell you in the chat, I'm sure. Usually I'm able to share my screen on my desktop with audio from Studio One and all of that. Normally I can do all of that, just not tonight. And even on my little laptop, I couldn't do that anyway. I cannot run Studio One on my little laptop. It is a crap laptop, to say the least. It's pretty awful. So let's see if I can get into the show on my laptop. That way I can follow the chat just a little bit better. Sean says he wrote a song for Lisdexia, all good fun. Excellent. Yeah, you said you were going to do that, and I don't know if you sent it to me, Sean, but if you did, to YouTube Studio, not where I want to be, but that's okay. So we got 19 people in here, which is awesome. Bob says just popping in to say hi, hit the like button. Can't stay, dinner with wife, hit the button. Excellent. Thank you, mate. I appreciate the likes. The likes are awesome. Thank you. Bobby is here. She says, ordered some more memory for my computer. Supposed to be in yesterday, but no show. Oh, that's not good. That's not good. You know, when you order parts, they should arrive on time. Aha. I need to come out of that because it's now trying to set up another stream, which I don't want to do. Let's see. Let's press this button here. Can I press that button? Okay, I'm now trying to work out how I can actually get back to the chat. Okay, let's go my channel. And the thing with this laptop is I click on something and then about 20 seconds later it does what I want it to do. I said 20 seconds later it does what I want it to, but it's not doing it. Come on. So, sorry about this, everybody. And I'm sure that numbers are going to dwindle down because this is not very entertaining. Sorry. Aha, there we are. I found the show. So all I need to do now is just mute the sound, otherwise we'll get all sorts of problems. Come on. Basically. Shut up. And of course there's, I don't know if you've seen this commercial, I don't know whether when you start up my show or when my show starts you get the Captain Chords commercial. I think it's Captain Chords. I don't know whether you get that or not, but I certainly do. That's very annoying, and it's buffering like crazy. Let's see, let's skip the ads. Okay, I can see the show. Hooray! Oh gosh, the picture quality looks horrendous. Let's change that. I don't know what I'm streaming at. I think I'm streaming it. So take a look at the chat. And what I might actually do is pop the chat out to a separate thing. Let's do that. Let's pop the chat out. Don't know if you knew this, but when you click the three dots at the top next to the chat here, over here, I think it is on your screen. When you click those three dots, you get a little drop-down menu, and you can pop out the chat, and it pops it out to a separate window, which is what I'm doing now. I'm just going to set that to live chat, and that means I don't have to look at my ugly muggins, and I can just concentrate on you guys. So there we go. Okay. Hopefully these two will stay a little bit in sync. They might not though, so there might be an even bigger delay between chat and me on the camera. Hopefully not, but we'll see. Let's see. Michael says, yes, I keep getting different MIDI chord packs. Yeah, the same guy with, I don't know if you get to see the black dude with the dreadlocks, English guy. And it's hilarious that he makes this this ad about, I think it's called I don't know what the software is called, but anyway, he's making this ad, and the first three words of his ad have clipped his mic, and there's clear distortion. It's hilarious. But anyway, let's see if I can catch up. So it was Maria Otero. Okay, welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you here. So let's see. Mika says, even an old Mac Mini Core Duo running OS 9.5 Mavericks will run Studio One with ease. Not a ton of plugins, but very workable. Well, yes, that's very true. And a lot of really cruddy laptops will do it. However, let me tell you about the specs of this laptop, because this was actually given to me by a friend of mine years ago. It's an Aspire V5 122p. That's the model. And it has an AMD dual-core processor. And it's the processor is a 1 gigahertz processor. Yay! Super fast. Not. It's like my phone is faster. My phone is about 3 times faster than that. Memory 4 gigs, double DDR3 memory. But so I apologize. We are going to be buffering a little bit because my phone is doing all the work at the moment, and it's trying to connect to my router, and occasionally it just loses connection because where I have it sat on my little ledge in front of my big monitor for my other computer, and it's kind of just balanced there. So let's see. Where do we get to? 1200 MIDI files. Yes, in different chords, different keys, and everything, and all of that. That's that commercial. So who do we have? We have Kyle, we have Sean Aaron, we have Just Bob, we have Bobby Booth, and Mika. Mika says, "Are you kidding? Watching you getting flustered is very relatable show material." Yes, thank you very much. Well, I'm trying to remain cool, calm, and collected because that's the professional thing to do. And that's the, in a classroom, when I used to be a high school music teacher, that would be the thing that I would have to do. If something went wrong and something didn't work, I'd have to very quickly, within a couple of seconds, just go, okay, abandon lesson plan. We do a completely new lesson. We just improvise a completely new lesson. Sometimes I had to do that. Jeff McCartney's here. He says, hi, sorry I had troubles with internet, but I'm here now. Join the club. I have a laptop that doesn't really work well enough to do live streaming. I have learned that this evening. So next time we have a situation where I don't have a computer, let's say maybe I am out of town for Sunday Night Live, the next thing to do is to do it on the phone. Don't do it on this laptop because this laptop is crap. Ken says, yep, teachers shift gears all the time. Yes, absolutely. And you have to do it super, super fast. Otherwise, you lose the kids. Now, obviously, you guys are adults. You're not kids. So you've got a much bigger attention span than the average 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old. And those were my classes. They were kind of 15 to 19. Those are the kids that I taught. For a while, when I was a classroom music teacher, it was entertaining, to say the least. And I did the job for, let me see, how long was I? 2 years. 2 years. And that was, and then I went straight back out to working full-time back in the music business again. But I discovered that I much preferred working in studios, and I much preferred playing gigs than being in a classroom. So, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot about teaching, and I developed my educational skills massively. Now, to give you the full disclosure, I have been an instrumental and audio engineering instructor at higher education level for about near 25 years. So, going into a high school was not my first exposure to classroom teaching. I've been a college lecturer in audio, and I'd also been a bass guitar instructor, upright bass instructor, and I taught drums, and I was a vocal coach. So I did all of that for about 25 years, as well as studio session work and all of that stuff. Mika says, was meant as a compliment, you're handling with aplomb. Well, thank you very much. That is very encouraging. Thank you. So we got 19 people here. Now, I'm not expecting a massive crowd because I didn't know whether this was going to work at all. And it appears to be working okay. Now, I don't know whether my the laptop has stopped updating the chat. Well, I don't know. I don't know. If it has, that would be very annoying. No, we're still good. We're still good. Still working. That's good. Yeah, Michael Johnson says it takes a lot of patience to deal with teenagers. Yes, it most certainly does. It takes a lot of skill, actually. That's one of the big things I learned from being a classroom teacher in a high school compared to in an adult education environment, which is where I cut my teeth educationally. And it's very, very different. I can talk like I am right now. I can talk, and do, a proper lecture to adults in a, in a higher learning environment with great ease. But I can't do what I'm doing now with kids that are 15 to 19 because in about 2.5 minutes, they have lost interest in what I'm saying. So I have to find different ways to thank you very much. And really, tonight's show is going to be a little bit of a ramble. So, you guys can help me out here by asking your questions. Basically, as I said, I think in the blurb on the Facebook page is that this was going to be a Q&A because I can't really do very much until my new computer arrives. But I didn't want to leave you guys without a Sunday Night Live. So I thought we could just make this kind of nice and casual. So if you've got questions, let's have them. I can't even play the piano, by the way, because the piano is hooked up to my audio interface and to the speakers and everything else. So yeah, that's not going to work. We're not going to get audio for the piano. Yeah, that's a bit of a shame. But it is what it is. Next Sunday, hopefully, with everything installed on the new computer, Studio One and everything else, all up and running, and OBS, all up and running, we should be able to do a proper full-on show. Michael says, can you give your definition of binary, ternary, rondo, and canon? Okay, those are all classical forms for composition. So binary is music in two parts. So you have an A section and a B section. So part one, part two. And generally speaking, we would letter them section A, section B. Now, in the era in which binary form and ternary form were used most, which is the Baroque period, so we're talking like up until the beginning of the second decade of the 1700s, so the 18th century, essentially the A section was in the tonic or the home key. So if your piece was in B flat major, then the A section would be in B flat major, and the B section would be in the dominant, so it would be in F major, and you would modulate, so you would change key from B flat to F, and then you would finish on a 2-5-1 in B flat to finish your piece, and that was how it finished. So thematic statement, first melody, and then section B would be a development of the ideas composed in section A. So that's binary. Ternary is a development of binary. Basically, this time it is in three parts. And this has ternary form is where you have an A section, as I said, and then you have a B section, usually in the dominant, and then you repeat the A section. So it's A, B, and A, and that's ternary form. Rondo. Rondo is cool because rondo is most like what we base our contemporary song forms upon. Because contemporary song, certainly post-war contemporary songs, tend to be verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus. It is the chorus that keeps coming back around. And it is that is what gains the attention of the listener the most, okay? So in a rondo form, you have an A section, and then a B section, then the A, and then you have another section altogether called this, you could call that section C, and then the A section comes back round, then you have another section of new material, and so it keeps going. And you can do that for as long as you want, essentially. You could write a 15-minute piece where the A section keeps coming back, and you have, A, B, A, C, A, D, A, E, A, F, A, G, A, H, A, and so on. You could do that almost indefinitely if you want for rondo form. And it's just the A section keeps coming back. So what you do for rondo form is, rather than having new material each time, you take melodic ideas from the A section and develop them in each of the other sections. So maybe you take the first phrase of your melody from section A, and you develop that idea in section B, and then you come back to section A, then you take another piece, and then you another piece of melody from A and do that in section C, and so on and so forth. And then the last one you said there, Michael, was canon. I think. Canon is an interesting one because that is a Baroque period form. And essentially, a canon takes a melodic idea and then cascades it through several variations in several parts of the orchestra, and they would run concurrently. So you would have your thematic statement, and then the next voice picks it up. It's kind of a bit like a round. If you've ever sung a round, somebody starts off by singing "London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down," or however long you want, and then the next voice comes in and starts, and then the next voice comes in and starts, and then the next voice comes in and starts, and that is a kind of canon, but we call it a round in that case. But that is one example of canonic composition. Michael says, I wonder if the group ABBA was named after the method of format. No, ABBA was named after the first names of each of the members of the band. So there you go. Mika says, playing with Studio One's chord track feature with audio. While it is cool that it sort of works, it is really an idea guide. For MIDI, it works very well, provided one learns the intricacies of the settings. That is quite correct. It really is a compositional idea guide. Basically, it gives you the chance to hear what your chord changes are going to sound like. So, and also, if you've recorded audio parts, and let's say, you've got C major, A minor, F major, going to G7, and those are your chord changes, and you decide that maybe you want to change the A minor to A7, and then instead of going to F major, you want to go to D minor, but you want to try it out and see what it sounds like first before you firm up that idea and maybe re-record the parts. So you can use the chord track to do that. So you can go C, A minor, F, and G. Those are your chords that you've recorded in using your acoustic guitar or your piano or whatever it might be, and your melody line, and maybe some scratched backup vocals, just to get the bare basics of your song together. But then you decide you want to try how they might fit, or you decide that maybe you want to do a key change, but you want to hear what that sounds like first. Well, you can do that, and I did a video on chord track from in my series Studio One 4.0 series. There's a chord track video there, which you can go and watch. And for audio, it's not 100% yet. At the moment, it only does 4-note voicings with any kind of success, and certainly the more bizarre you get with it, the harder the algorithm. But I'm pretty sure that it is a concept that is in its infancy at the moment and is going to be developed down the line. I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Mike is away. Good night, Mike. He says, kids need me. Okay, mate. I will speak to you very soon. Let's see. Thoughts on the Universal Audio, the UAD Luna. I was actually doing a little bit of reading about that just this afternoon. It looks interesting. It looks like it's a little bit of a mashup between Reaper with aspects, Reaper and Logic with aspects of Cubase thrown into the mix. That's kind of what it looks like to me. Now, here's the interesting thing, is that the UAD guys absolutely insist that it is not a DAW. You don't call it a DAW. They say it's not a DAW, it's a recording system. And here's the interesting thing, is that it is designed for Mac only, much like Logic is Mac only. No real objections there from me, but it's designed to integrate very, very tightly with UAD plugins and UAD interfaces and other associated hardware. The idea is, I think, is that they've kind of maybe borrowed this concept from PreSonus, the idea of having an ecosystem. And maybe they're trying to reverse engineer an ecosystem, because they've been developing, they're well known for their plugins, and they're well known for their DSP audio interfaces, and, all of those other DSP cards that they do. They are well known for those things and those products, and they are awesome. They are amazing, definitely. And I think maybe they are now trying to reverse engineer that and go, hey, it's about time we had a recording system that we can bundle with our gear and it's our recording system, and it integrates very tightly with our stuff. Presonus have done that and have been doing that for the last 25 years, and have certainly with Studio One been doing that for the last 10 years. And of course, now we have UCNet, we have Universal Control, and we also can, with our hardware products, you can have AVB and Dante and all of that for networking, EarMix with all that together with Capture, and then you can bring all that into Studio One. So we've been doing that for a while, or Personas have been doing that for a while, I should say. So I think maybe they are on the back of that, maybe. Let's see. James says, is that Steely Dan t-shirt? Yes, it is. Steely Dan. I have been to see Steely Dan several times. The first time I saw them live was in 2000 on their Two Against Nature tour, when they had Ricky Lawson on drums. I saw them down in London twice. I went to the Wembley Arena show and it was awesome. So good that I went to the Hammersmith Arena show as well. I spent far too much money, but it was well worth going to do. And then I saw them in Edinburgh in 2009. And then I saw them last year in Glasgow. And the best bit about the Glasgow show was the banter between the audience and Donald Fagen. It was hilarious. The audience gave back as good as they got from Donald, which was hysterically funny because he was very quick-witted with the audience and had us in hysterics. It was very, very funny. So, for all of those years where Donald would basically say, I'm not a front guy, he proved very much that he is a front guy and can interact with audiences really, really well. He was very, very funny. And I think if he ever decides to not do Steely Dan, he could certainly have his own TV show, his own TV chat show, or he could do a stand-up comedy show. He'd be really good. So let's see. Chord track is good, says Michael Johnson, but not quite as awesome as the Note DNA and the full version of Melodyne. Yes, but as I say, I think chord track is baby steps towards something far bigger that is way down the line in the future somewhere. I can't say for certain because I don't know for certain, but I think that's probably where it's going to go because that would be logical to me anyway. Let's see. That are delayed, but they must be harmonic. Yes, suspensions must be resolved in canon. So if you have suspended fourths or suspended seconds, which is something Bach was very fond of doing, suspended seconds, even though they were not really that popular at the time. I mean, he was kind of, Bach was way ahead of his time. He was hearing things harmonically that were way, way, way in the future, like 300 years into the future. He was hearing harmony that advanced. But yes, it's all about the resolution of the tension. You have to do it correctly in canon. ABACAB, the song by Genesis. Yeah, I think that's what they're getting at as well. Mika says, agree 100%. Watch your videos to help me get started with it. Very handy. Good. Awesome. I'm glad. Let's see. Andy Arthur is here. Andy, my good friend. Good to see you. And he's asking me how it's going. It's going pretty good, other than the frustration of not having my new computer yet, which is why I'm talking to you on my phone, which is probably going to run out of battery sooner rather than later. Let's see. What else we got here? Mika says, once one tries discrete HQ, transformer-based input-output stage interface is hard to go back. Worth saving up for. Yeah, if you've got the money for it, go for it. I quite agree. And Sean Aaron is talking about his song, which he's going to post tonight on YouTube. Awesome. Ken says, would be cool to see Donald Fagen do a show similar to Jules Holland. I agree, and I think he would do it a lot better than Jules Holland. I absolutely think he would do it a lot better than Jules Holland. So I just listened to Canon in D for a few minutes, and I hear it sounds like a Canon, so assuming they just named after the style. Yes, that's exactly what it is, Canon in D. See, back then, in the Baroque period, they didn't really have titles for pieces of music. Usually, music was written for liturgical reasons. What do I mean by liturgical reasons? Well, they were meant to accompany the liturgy of the church. So, and it may well be the Catholic Church in France as well, depending upon where you're from. So, if you're somebody like Johann Sebastian Bach in the Baroque period, he would have been a Lutheran. So, his works would have accompanied Lutheran liturgy. Taco Stacks says best chicken nugget dipping sauce. Probably barbecue, but I don't know. Michael says I lost video right where you're going to comment on Canon in D. Yes, it's called Canon in D because back in the Baroque period, those kind of pieces of music were written for liturgy, for church liturgy. So they didn't necessarily have catchy titles like we would now. I mean, Canon in D sounds a bit crap unless you're writing a song about a camera, in which case that makes sense. But if you're not writing about a camera, Canon D is a bit of a rubbish name for a song. So, yeah, so they were written for liturgical purposes. And I've got the itchiest nose ever at the moment. Really sorry. Ken says, when did the first program music appear? Probably at the end. Let me think before I trip myself up. I'm going to say that Vivaldi's Four Seasons is an excellent example of program music, and it predates the whole thing by a lot of years. I mean, Vivaldi was a Baroque composer, and really program music didn't really take the form that we know it today until maybe the early part of the 20th century. So kind of the early 1900s, maybe 1910s, maybe middle 1910s. Program music really started taking on the form that we know it today. But certainly each section of the work is meant to be an audio painting, if you like, of each of the seasons of the year. And I think Vivaldi does a fantastic job. Other program music from that period would be Handel's Music for Fireworks, which was music written for a New Year's Eve fireworks display on the River Thames. So that's another example. And he has a couple of other works that and in that period, and then kind of grew out from there. Sorry, I apologize for the buffering. Keep hitting the refresh button, or actually even better, go down to the bottom of this screen here, and where it says live, when it buffers, hit that button and it should jump to where we are instantly live. So that's maybe a quicker idea. Kyle says I'm going to say goodnight. Good night, Kyle. I appreciate you coming, and we're actually going to finish in about 10 minutes because I know we started a little bit late. Fun Fiber says just read Steely Dan and Steve Winwood are going to tour the USA. Yes, they are. Steve Winwood and Steely Dan were both at Glasgow in February last year. Steve Winwood I have not seen for decades. I maybe last saw him in the 1990s when he played Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club in London. And it was awesome. What a show. He is a wonderful musician because he's a great guitar player, but he's also a really, really good Hammond organ player. Wow, he is good. And so he did his band, they did a set, and then Steely Dan did their show, and then towards the end of their show, Steve came back on the stage. They brought his Hammond organ back out, and he sat in with the band, and it sounded absolutely epic. Mika says, better to wait on buying the Endless Miracle plugins and save up and buy HQ audio components to go with your HQ software and computer hardware. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. If you've got the finance to do that, definitely it's the way to go. But I think you also have to make use of the tools you have at the time. You know, when I first started out, way back last century in the 1980s, I did not have a lot of gear. I had a microphone, I had an SM57, an SM58, and um, I had a condenser microphone that I now cannot remember the make or model of. Um, and that belonged to my dad. Uh, and I had a tape machine, a reel-to-reel tape machine. And I also had a 16-track mixer, 16 channel mixer, and that was all I had. And so I would record onto the tape and mix through my little mixer, and then output that to a cassette deck. And that was I did my first 5 or 6 records that way. And then I got computers into it. I got an Atari ST and I used Steinberg's Pro 24, and that got me into MIDI, and that got me into doing things like drum programming and programming some rhythm tracks, and then kind of blending those with real live instruments, a real horn section, real vocals, and everything else. And so, you know, I just had to use what I had at the time. And then eventually, I think the back end of the 1990s, I got a much better system. And by that point, I was using Cubase. I started using Cubase and I used Cubase on the Atari platform in 1988, 89. After I'd done maybe about a year with Pro 24. Yeah, but maybe 1990 that I started with Cubase actually on Atari. And then, of course, I moved over to PC not too long down the line and was using Cubase on PC as soon as it was possible to do that. And it was great. And of course, I got some Waves plugins. And then when I switched to Studio One in 2013, I got rid of all of my Waves plugins and got rid of all of that stuff. And I just used what was in Studio One and did everything in the computer. Got rid of all of my analog gear, got rid of the old mixer, got rid of the tape machine, got rid of all of that, and did everything with an audio interface, 2-channel audio interface actually, my computer, and a pair of KRK Rocket 5 speakers. And that was my studio rig. And now I have much more gear. But yeah, so there you go. Ticketmaster just announced the Summer 2045 Rolling Stones tour featuring Keith Richards. See, I think Keith Richards will see in the 22nd century. That's what I think. Michael says, my first mixer was Realistic from Radio Shack. Oh, I remember those. Second was a Mackie 1604 VLZ Pro. I don't think I ever used any Mackie hardware, ever. Let's see. Phil Collins' great-granddaughter will be playing drums. Yeah, you know what? That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, Phil already has his son playing drums in his shows. Michael says Commodore 64 SID music, then Amiga. Hang on, I'm just going to show that. There we go. Commodore 64 SID, then Amiga using Octamed, then PC with Fast Tracker. Gosh, I remember Fast Tracker. And Cakewalk. And how the times have changed. Yes, I remember Fast Tracker. I think I worked with a friend of mine on his record, and he was using Fast Tracker Pro, I think it was. Sean Aaron says, maybe best to subscribe to my channel. I have it posted shortly after the show. I'll have to make a quick video with the song. It can be 30 minutes after the show and check. Awesome, Sean Aaron, please do send me a link to that, and I will definitely go check it out, because that will be awesome to check that out. Okay, gonna go for another 4 or 5 minutes, so if you've got more questions, get them in the chat now, start typing away. And actually, this hasn't worked out too badly. We've buffered a little bit from time to time, but it's not been too bad. But hopefully this will be the only time I need to do this. I'm hoping that next Sunday will be all singing, all dancing back with OBS and my famous little intro and outro music, that piece called Flip Flops that I did years ago. And Sean says, oh, I also emailed you the Liz Dexia song. Awesome, cool. I'll check that out. That'll be fantastic. I've not touched my cup of tea for the entire time. There we go. Thomas says, what happened with the 2 minor chords, first 5 notes in scale challenge? Well, that was basically an open-ended challenge. There was never really any deadline for it. It was basically, go ahead, write a song just using 2 minor chords only, and the first 5 notes of the minor scale of the key center of your music. So if you're writing in C minor, then you got to use those first 5 notes of that chord, of that scale. So C, if you're in C minor, be C, D, E flat, F, and G. And so you would pick 2 minor chords that fit into that key of C minor and those first 5 notes of the key of C minor. And it's an open-ended challenge, basically just to say, can you write a song that only makes use of 5 notes and 2 chords and make it, say, 3 minutes long, and make it completely cohesive, make complete sense, and not get rambly? Because I set my students this challenge a few years back, my higher education students a few years back. And the thing that can happen if you're not careful is the melody can just get a little bit and it just doesn't make any sense. So you've got to make coherent, clearly understood musical phrases rather than just going up and down the scale a few times and then you finish the song. So you've got to come up with something that sounds good and that works. Let's see, what else do we have? Anyone remember Dr. T's music software? No, I don't think I ever used that. Michael says, is that a challenge we came up with back a few months ago? Yes, 2 minor chords and 32 bars. That's right. Yeah, 2 minor chords, first 5 notes of your scale, and 32 bars long. And yeah, as I say, I set that to my higher education students a few years back, and it's harder than it sounds. Or it's not hard, it's kind of maybe a little bit more tricky than it sounds. You think, oh great, I only got 2 chords, I've only got 5 notes, I've only got 32 bars, what could possibly go wrong? I could write this in 5 minutes. It's much more of a challenge than you think, which is why I set it to you guys, because I think you guys can do it. Let's see. Toby Phillips is posting something and I can't see it. I don't know why. Mika says, Dr. T is split up. Some went to Cubase, some went to eMagic. Awesome MIDI software. None has ever matched it ever. I think maybe the nearest to that has got to be eMagic. And of course, eMagic then became Logic. And I think Logic's MIDI is probably among the best that is available. I think in terms of editing, MIDI editing, maybe Cubase is the winner at the moment. I'm saying at the moment because who knows what is going to come out of Presonus next. Who knows what they're going to do next. They may well come up with something with MIDI that is radical. Who knows? I don't know. Mika says most of the GUI for MIDI we know of today was created by Dr. T piano roll, velocity level bars. Yes, and you know, if it's something good, everybody should use it. I see nothing wrong with a really, really great concept and a really, really great idea being applied in several DAWs. Because at the end of the day, nobody has ever had an original thought. I'll say that again. Nobody has ever had an original thought, and nobody ever will. Why do I say that? It's because it's true. And it's because everybody is shaped and influenced by other things that come into their world. Like the music I write and the music that I perform has very clear and obvious influences into them. So, and I write about subjects that are well known in the world. I don't necessarily write obscure lyrics. I like to write silly songs. My songs tend to be comedy. That's essentially what they are. And I really, even Thomas Edison, the great Thomas Edison, when he was inventing his light bulb, he did not have an original thought. He went, what about when he started trying to find a way to record sound? He didn't have an original thought there either, because there were French electrical and there were French engineers who were working on similar ideas. In fact, the earliest example that we know of a human voice recording is dated back to 1803. 1803. So that's actually before Thomas Edison's famous phonograph and all of that. So those were recordings made using I think tin foil, a stylus on tin foil. Now it doesn't sound very good. The quality is exceptionally low grade, but you can certainly make out what is being said. It's amazing, actually. So nobody has had an original thought. And Mika, of course, says, we stand upon the shoulders of those who stood upon the shoulders of those who stood. Yeah, absolutely. Michael Johnson says, our brains and memories work by relationships between things we learned or have learned. Yeah, even things that we learn and absorb passively can actually profoundly shape decisions that we make and concepts and ideas that we go on to develop, even creative ideas that we go on to develop. So you can passively listen to music, and I do this at night. Or, I listen to audiobooks. Alexander Graham Bell invented recording. Well, he certainly was a very large player in that race to record. And yes, he did invent the decibel. Absolutely. And by the way, Alexander Graham Bell was from Glasgow. So once again, Scottish engineering dominates the world. And actually, I'm sitting in a studio full of all this gear and ability to record, and that's all down to Alexander Graham Bell and Thomas Edison and other folks. Neither of those guys were the first to do anything to do with recording sound. There were pioneers that went before them, and they took their ideas and developed them further. It's like you don't get to Michael Brecker without John Coltrane. You don't get to John Coltrane without Charlie Parker. You don't get to Charlie Parker without Lester Young. And so it goes, and so it goes, and so it goes. Let's see. Very funny. Steely Dan followed the beat poets of the day. Wish I could write lyrics like that. Funny, ironic. Yeah, they certainly did. Actually, they were much more as much as they were influenced by the 1950s beat poets like Jack Kerouac and William Burroughs and people like that. They were also greatly influenced by much earlier songwriting that was developed around the vaudeville and music hall period. So we're talking the late 1920s into the early 1930s. So they were influenced as much by people like George and Ira Gershwin, Irving Berlin, and Rodgers and Hammerstein and Stephen Sondheim. They were very shaped by all of those songwriters as much as they were by reading science fiction novels and watching science fiction on television or at the cinema or um, you know, authors like Nabokov and people like that. They were shaped as much by them as they were by the 50s beat poets. But definitely, I wish I could write lyrics like them too. Michael Johnson is talking to Ken Ross. He says he would say something like, "I saw a big spider and I quizzed it." Because of his body language, he understood he meant squeezed or squashed. Michael says, "I love to cook. What are some native foods or recipes from your area?" Okay, from Scotland we have haggis, which is basically a bunch of ingredients stuffed into a pig's stomach, and it is a traditional food of Scotland. We also have our own whiskies, which are world famous. Pretty much because we invented the stuff, and then the Irish caught onto it. So you have Irish and Scotch whiskey, and the two have similarities, similar tastes, similar aromas, similar palates, but they're not the same. Mika says, "I've been to his home and workshops in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, Canada, where he worked on many of his inventions." Yes, indeed. I would love to go myself. Alexander Graham Bell was Helen Keller's speech teacher. Speech instruction for the deaf was why AGB worked on recording technology. He was a saint of a human. Well, he was an interesting character, and he was flawed. He was not exact. I would not say he was necessarily a saint of a human, but he certainly did a lot of good with the skills and the talents and the gifts that he did have, including, as you say, speech instruction for the deaf, amongst other things. But yeah, he was far from being a perfect guy, a really, really good guy. He did do a lot, but, he also shamelessly stole ideas from other people. And we all know James says we all know the origin of the Steely Dan name. Yes, if you have read any William Burroughs novels, you will know this. You will know what Steely Dan is. All right, so we are at 1:15 in the morning, and we have just gone past the hour mark. So I am going to wrap the show there. Thank you very much for coming to this somewhat unusual version of my show. I apologize for it being like this, but hopefully next Sunday we will have brand new computers sat underneath this desk, everything all hooked up, Studio One and everything else all working flawlessly. And if that is the case, we'll be doing the first show on Sunday on my new computer. So fingers crossed that it all works out. I will let you know. I'll let you know kind of how things go. You're welcome, Jeff. Once I'm into Friday, Saturday, I should have a clear idea of how the show is going to be on Sunday. So hopefully everything will be just perfect. But I've never done what I'm doing before, so I've never had to, install everything onto a brand new computer before. Certainly as much stuff, because back in 2014, when I got this computer, I had a lot less software to install. I didn't have OBS, I didn't have Camtasia, I didn't have all of that stuff. I just had Studio One, and I didn't even have Universal Control because it didn't exist back then. So I didn't have very much, but now I've got loads to install. It's going to be fun, to say the least. Mika says, "Great improv tonight." You're welcome. Thank you. Good night to all herein. All right, folks, that will be it. Thank you very much. Good night. And now I have to figure out how to end the show. So I'm going to pick you up at this point. Here we go. I have to figure out how to end the show now. So what do I do? Do I press that button? Yes, I do. Good night, everybody.